And we're going to start off talking about Ange Postecoglou. And we did see a few tactical tweaks in the game against Brentford. And is that a sign of things to come, Jacob? Do you think after that game you're more confident now that Ange is showing those signs of adaptability?
Well, I think it was always something that we looked for, right? Was just the minor adaptations to the little things that aren't working. And we sort of saw that a little bit, I think, primarily with the fullbacks from my amateur perspective, was that the fullbacks were inverting a little bit less. They were not crowding as many areas. Madison, I think, with a little bit more room to operate, you could see what he could do there. Now, in regards to Ange, I've always felt like that it wasn't the tactics that weren't working. It was the players being ineffective in the tactics that wasn't working. Because when you go back to the two losses versus Newcastle and Arsenal, there's 35 shots in 180 minutes, and Heung-min Son's only taking 2 of those. That is a problem for me. Now, I saw Son taking a shot early on within 10 minutes from outside the box. That was very nice to see. I think it's just little things that the players need to do, maybe little things that Ange needs to specifically manage them on, because it was a stark difference from the squad that we saw versus Coventry, the style of play, the way that the cohesion was. In Coventry, it just looked like every time we got the ball, give it to Destiny. He knows what to do. And so this seemed a lot more fluid, and I thought Destiny had a better game. I thought everyone had a much improved game. Again, I'm not trying to get too much into the players just yet, but from an Ange Postecoglou perspective, you know, if the players are unable to do the things that we are trying to ask them to do, which is just be 15 to 20% more effective in the final third. You do that, we win the game versus Arsenal, we win the game versus Newcastle, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You know,
Leicester
the
as
facts
well.
say Leicester as well. Again, it's just a 15% efficiency. That's all I ask. That's all the system requires you to have, because again, 35 shots in 180 minutes, and one of them go in off of an own goal. That's an effectiveness from a player perspective, in my opinion. And I know there's been a lot of discourse around whether it's Ange's tactics or the players. And for me personally, you know, Coventry, I felt like was more on Ange Postecoglou than any of those losses in the Premier League, because the system set them up. It's just we didn't finish and do the last part. So to me, it was always an indication of, will these players put it all out on there on the line for Ange? And it really looked like these players were playing for him and fighting for him and showing that, look, we still believe in him. We still believe. Because I think a lot of fans were also questioning whether the players even believed in Ange anymore, that they thought that this was the right way forward. And things were getting a little gray there. The skies were looking a little bleak. And I'm just glad that we're sailing right now and the sun's shining and we're on good course.
Johnny, I know you've had a few things to say about Ange Postecoglou over the past 6 months or whatever it may be. After the Brentford game and seeing those tweaks, getting Destiny and Porro maybe more on the outside and getting Brennan and Sonny more in maybe the positions where they would like to take up on the pitch more centrally, and getting goal contributions against Brentford. Are you more happy with that system that you saw, or do you still have a lot of question marks regarding Ange?
Well, should we be applauding a manager for playing Destiny Udogie in his correct position? I mean, I watched a lot of his games when we signed him for Conte as a left wing back, and the guy likes to hug that left-hand touchline, literally hug the touchline, pick up the ball, drive along that left-hand touchline with pace and power and cut in. When he's playing inverted, he's running into Piccadilly Circus. He's got nowhere to go. He's not playing as effective. It's just not effective. And the same goes for James Maddison. James Maddison needs space to operate. And because it's so inverted and so vacuum packed, there's no room for him to move in the middle of the park. So he's had to come deep. I personally don't think he's as effective as a deep lying playmaker. Now, it's different when you're picking up the ball off the halfway line. But we saw on Saturday that, when you play Destiny out wide, he's playing with a freedom. The space that Maddison had, that was the best James Maddison has played since before the Chelsea game last year.
I think in a Spurs shirt in general.
Could possibly be, right? It's the first time he scored. That's why he whipped off his shirt. Okay, he could have celebrated. I mean, I thought the celebration was a bit over the top for the third goal against Brentford. But the point is here, it was his frustrations coming out. I understand it. I understand it. But him and Bentancur, the transitions that Bentancur was doing, picking up the ball from Romero and moving that ball so quickly with him and Maddison, and Dogi out wide, should be appreciated. I'm not sure it should be applauded because, I've been crying out for this for 6-7 months, right? Well, since he's come back, since Maddison came back from his injury, and I'm happy that it's happened, but I still wonder why there is some sort of necessity to play players in a position that doesn't necessarily suit them. I'll give you an example. There was like maybe if you look at Spence, in my opinion, having been dropped from the commentary game, I've got no idea why he didn't start. He's not starting in Europa League games. He starts on the bench, and he's putting Gray in at right back over him. I don't understand that. Are we then to applaud Postecoglou when he puts Gray in the middle of the park, and we say, "Wow, it's a masterstroke. He's put Gray in the middle of the park," because he is a midfielder, right? He's a 6, he's an 8. If you see him, for me, he looks like a young Isco. When you see him play, how he played for Leeds, he hasn't had the chance to show that in the Spurs shirt right now. So all I'm saying is I'm very happy to see it, but I really don't see why he's putting square pegs in round holes or playing players out of position. Can we do that against Man United? I'd be interesting to see, because does he want to let Bruno Fernandes have that space in the middle of the park, or does he want to congest it back up? And will he invert the backs again for that game, or will he enable Porro to go wide? Because they play with some good width. Ten Hag with Garnacho and Ahmad and a few others, in the team. It'd be interesting to see. As I say, one swallow doesn't make a summer, but it was really positive. I was really happy to see it. All I'm saying here, guys, is I'm not trying to be negative. All I'm trying to say is that this should have happened a long time ago, in my opinion.
If I may, I was
go on,
looking
Jacob.
while Johnny was talking, because this has been a sticking point for me, where I felt like from week one, Destiny has been coming under a lot of criticism as far as positioning, and then with what Johnny was saying, being used in the right position, hugging the touchline. Now I went back and looked at the last 4 Premier League matches, including Brentford. Positionally, as far as the heat map's concerned, it's almost identical, and it's more heavily concentrated. I think the reason we saw that space was because of Brentford, not because of at one point they were pressing and they were coming out and they were trying to play the game that we wanted to play, and to me, I think that allowed for that space for James Maddison, because I don't always think that it's Destiny's fault. Like one of the things week 1 versus Leicester City that I heard a lot, not from Johnny specifically, but I heard around the works, was that Destiny was crowding Maddison's space, and that's why Maddison wasn't able to create. He was the only one out there who was trying. And then, I'm looking at the numbers and I look at the heat map, it doesn't really reflect the narrative in that instance. And then it kind of, Destiny actually had a couple of bad games after that. I think match day 2 and 3 were pretty poor from him. And then he looked a little bit better versus Arsenal, but again, it was Arsenal, one of the best teams in the league. And I think that was the best match we saw from Destiny this season. And I think a little bit of that is him coming back into fitness, but I don't know that it's necessarily him always clogging the way. I just think it was a more of having Pedro Porro stay back when Destiny pushes up, and vice versa, and having
Like
less
Conte
of them.
Like
Yeah,
Conte did.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I agree with Johnny in a sense, like utilizing these players to the best of their abilities, we have to try and do more of. Destiny is the best when he's got that room to run and he's got that space to be strong with the ball and then keep going. We saw that versus Brentford. And I think that it's the same thing with Son. When he gets a little bit of space, I want him to be confident enough to shoot it, because he is the best finisher we have in this. Sorry, I don't want to digress. I just want to touch on that Destiny point, because I feel like the heat map doesn't say that he's been doing anything differently. I just think systematically throughout the 90, it is looking different, but positionally, as far as the heat map is concerned, it's all the same spaces.
But Jacob, what it did do, I do think there were a few differences with Destiny, and yes, you're right, he has been taking up a lot of the same positions this season. But what was the difference in this Brentford game? Instead of coming inside a lot of the time, which he has done in the first 4 games, he stuck out wide more than he has done in the past in the first 4 games, which allowed Sonny to move inside and operate in those areas which we love seeing him in. And he got 2 assists. He was able to take shots off like you mentioned earlier on in the stream. And that was the key difference for me. Like, he did still come inside, but he didn't come inside anywhere near as much that he has been doing in the first 4 games of the season. And I think that's the tweaks that we're talking about. And, you know, the narrative was about Ange Postecoglou, about, you know, he's not able to adapt. He's married to this system. He's married to the complete inverted fullbacks, and he's not going to change it for love nor money. And he backs the system, and he thinks it's going to work eventually. But we didn't see that. I think against Brentford, we saw a clear kind of tactical flexibility, and not only about the inverted fullbacks, but in terms of how much possession we were having as well. Like, usually we're getting 65+% possession. We actually got less possession than Brentford.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, isn't that, you know, when you look at Eddie Howe at Newcastle, you know, in fact, I saw a stat the other day, I think it was Wimbledon. They had 22% possession, but won 3-0. You know, you have to be flexible in a game to suit your opponents. And, you know, Ange has stated so many times that he's not interested in the opponents. He's interested in his game. And I think that's foolhardy. That, you know, that might work at, you know, when you're you know, Celtic. It doesn't work. It doesn't work in the Premier League. And, you know, I think, you know, you have to be respectful for the oppositions and the quality, the high quality of tactical nous. And I think Jacob was right. Some of this yesterday, on Saturday, was to do with Thomas Frank, who I think is a brilliant tactician, but he was missing 5 first teamers on the weekend. And let's be honest, let's break this down. You know, we had 23 shots, only 10 were on target. They had 6 on target. And at one stage, for quite a long period in that second half, when it was 2-1, and Buemo and Sade, who came on as a sub, both had 2 very good chances to level it. And we only put this game to bed in the 88th minute. And, you know, I think, you know, what we were saying before and what Jacob was saying before, we have to be more clinical. You know, we have to put teams to bed because we can't give them the opportunity. There were 2 very good opportunities for them to come away with a draw. And then we would have been having almost the same conversation as we had over Leicester and Newcastle about the story of what should have been, what could have been, but wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me, I think the reason we saw Son and Johnson in particularly have a bit more space and be a bit more effective in this game is because Ange definitely decided to make this game more of a transitional game than a heavy possession-based, trying to break down a low block kind of game, which is what we've seen over the past, you know, for the first 4 games of the season. Spurs have been the ones to dominate possession, allow the opposition to get back in their low block, allow them to get set, and that's why Johnson and Son have been forced a lot wide, not forced, but by design, Ange's system gets them wider because that's where the space is. And he manipulates the pitch to get these wingers into one-on-one situations out wide so they can make it so he wants their attacking players in space. Because obviously when you're playing a low block and if you're going to play Johnson and Son a bit more central against a low block, you're not going to find any space. They're not going to be able to make an impact. That's why he gets them wider. However, in the Brentford game, they played a back 3 with Lewis Potter-Keane, who's basically a winger playing a left wing back. And what that meant was when we got the transitions, there was a lot of space in that kind of space in between the wing back and the centre back. And it meant that they could just vacate those kind of spaces, which is a lot more central, and just attack those spaces directly as soon as we got the ball. And Johnson and Son are very much more effective in more transitional games. That's where they've been their best in their careers. Son is always best in transition. I think Johnson, when he was at Forest, he's always been more comfortable when there's a big transition. He's got a lot of space to play in. So I don't think it was a case of when it comes to Ange changing things tactically. I definitely think he did that. I definitely think there was a big change to make Spurs take advantage of more transitions in this kind of game than there was in previous games. But was that because of how Brentford play? Is this something we're going to see more going forward? Obviously, we have to wait and see, in the next game, are we going to go back to having a lot more possession? Because I think Ange, in his perfect system, does want to have possession. I think he wants to have a high amount of possession. He wants control. He wants a lot of the ball. He wants to have control of the game, so the team is responding to what we're doing rather than us responding to what the other team are doing. And I think in a perfect Ange system, he'll want teams to be adapting to us and sitting in a low block. And then what he would want is the players that we have on the ball being able to break teams down, being good in small spaces. But unfortunately, right now, we have Son and Johnson out wide who just aren't very suited to that. So in this game, it was much more suited to them because they had that space to run into in transition, and that really worked for us. I don't think it was us doing anything different positionally. I think it was much more to do with giving up the ball a bit more, being a lot more aggressive in the pressing, allowing Brentford to try and build up the ball from the back, and then obviously we will just hit them on the press and then just be very, very direct in transition. And that really worked in Son and Johnson's favour, and that's why they got a lot more joy, in my opinion. Obviously, Brentford also did the man-to-man marking, and a lot of other teams haven't really done that. They've kind of done the zonal as restricting space. They went man-to-man, and that meant as soon as Maddison wriggled away from them, that kind of did kind of force transitions on them, because what it means is players get attracted to him, or he gets a lot of space. One of the two things happen. Because he was so good individually, that absolutely made a big difference to how Brentford were going to try and set up as well. So I definitely think Ange adapted in this game. I'm not sold yet whether that's going to be something we're going to see going forward, or is this something specific to this game? We'll have to wait and see. But definitely, I do think Ange adapted in terms of his possession-heavy base game, and it definitely turned into a more transitional game in this one, I felt.
Did you get frustrated, though? I mean, I don't know about you guys. Maybe it was just me. I just felt a little bit frustrated. Listen, before we got the third goal, I must hasten to add, before we got the third goal, obviously the third goal calmed everybody down and we were all rejoicing. But we had the second most touches in the box. Even though we had less possession than Brentford, we had 57 touches in the opposition box. And there were moments in that game where I'm thinking, shoot, how many touches do you want? Sonny should have done better, right? There were moments where, back in the day, Sonny would have finished that. He wouldn't be trying to take it round the keeper or having extra touches. There were moments in the box where we looked like we were, being authoritative in the box there and driving into the box, but still that reluctance. Like I say, 23 shots, but those shots were often third and fourth touches when hit the ball first time. Shift the ball, bang, right? Don't allow your defenders to reset. And as I say, 57 touches. I think Leicester was 60 or 61 touches. That's the most any team has had. It might have been overtaken yesterday by Manchester City in that disgraceful game performance by Arsenal. But it's just something. I think if we can tweak it, Jacob talked about 15%. I just think it's the difference between a winning mentality, the belief that we should be shooting and taking chances and scoring goals from these chances. Because if you don't finish your dinner in the Premier League, you only need one chance and one chance. You can sit back and be under the cosh and have one chance and score a goal, and so you have to finish.
Yeah. Was it?
I agree with that.
Was it the first game yesterday that we've actually scored over 2 goals since Aston Villa? Have we scored over 2 goals since then?
Oh, Everton.
Everton, yeah.
Yeah, Everton.
Forgot about that
It
game.
does seem a long time.
Didn't we score 3 in the last match of the season?
Against Sheffield United.
Oh, yeah, we did that one as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't
Fair
count
play.
that one.
Fair play. My memory's foggy after the Aston Villa game. But Jacob, are you?
I mostly remember this because I'm always defending Ange Postecoglou, it seems.
Are you more confident after that game that it is going to click for us this season and we can show a bit of consistency now with Man United and Brighton away both coming around the corner?
Absolutely. I've felt confident the entirety of this season. I will admit, up until the Coventry game, about 75 minutes in, I was feeling very, very confident because, again, I've always looked at it from, in the heat of the battle when it finishes. Yes, I'm frustrated, I'm upset, I'm angry, and I'm looking at the numbers like, where did this go wrong? Because, my eyes will tell me a certain story, the numbers will tell me another story. And I feel like for me, I find my best balance is somewhere in the middle. So a lot of times during a watch long, after a watch long, I'm fuming, I'm losing my head. But then I'm, later or during the, my post match thoughts, I'm looking through things and I'm saying, well, hang on. We had 20 some shots, and how many of those were on target? The XG was low. So clearly we're not taking the best of chances, but the system and the tactics are setting us up into a chance where we are creating these. And I felt like a lot of our goals in the transition play would be nullified had we been more efficient in our attempts in their final third. Because the best, George Washington once said, the best form of a defense is a potent offense. And you know what? He won a war with that mentality. So I believe in it fully that if you just go out there and bang more goals than your opponent, it really don't matter how many you concede. It's not a reflection of Romero, Van de Veen, Vicario, etc. But admittedly, Pedro Porro did worry me a little bit. I didn't know who number 23 was before yesterday, and he was cooking Pedro Porro. He had him dancing left, dancing right. So that was a concern. And I thought in the second half, Pedro Porro defensively much more improved. So the things that worried me about Brentford are the same things that's worried me the entirety of the season, which is what Johnny and I have been saying, which is scoring the goals. Because again, versus Brentford, we were up 2-1. There was chances where we could have gone up 3-1, 4-1. And then there were chances for them to tie it 2-2, 2-2. And then they kind of get a little lucky. We kind of get a little lucky. I know Ange doesn't like the word luck, but I believe in luck and leprechauns and all that. So I feel like we were getting a little bit lucky, and then you know what? We get that third goal and finally put it to bed. But we could have got that third goal at the end of the first half. We could have gotten it at some point in the start of the second half, and we failed to do that. Therefore, they started. Then you saw what was it, about like 70 to 80 minute ish. They started growing in their confidence. Now they're putting nice sequences of passages of play together, and it was like, okay, I'm getting a little worried. We're gonna drop points now. We just got to hold on. And then it was like, eventually everything became good because you know what happened? Basuma got stuck in. Cuti Romero picked up the ball, pushed forward, curled it around a guy, found Heung-min Son in space. And look, James Maddison, this is my thing with him. I'm glad he got the goal because if you go back to Dominic Solanke's first goal, he would have had an easy tap in if James Maddison wasn't tunnel visioned. He just shot it straight at the keeper, Dominic Solanke, with the cleanup. To me, Maddison as a vice captain got to be a little bit better in those situations. Share the sugar to a little bit. Take a note from Son's playbook because I think the captaincy armband has made Son more reluctant to shoot and prevalent to just pass the ball, get people involved. And it's like Sarr comes on 45 seconds later, has a crack from 30 yards. It's like, Son, you're in the same position 10 minutes ago. Do that. You're way better at it than Sarr. No offense, but you are. And we do these things. It's always just been a matter of wait for it to click, wait for these things to gel because the tactics are there. The chances are there. It's just we got to capitalize on them. Brennan Johnson could have had a hat trick of goals, but he only got one. That's good. That's okay. We got to build on that. But again, efficiency, just 15% more efficiency in the final third. And we win those two games, like I mentioned. I kind of dwell on it a little bit because it's like we didn't get worked by Arsenal. We didn't get worked by Newcastle. Yes, they beat us in moments, but overall, we showed that we have the ability to control a game, and we just need that last bit, that last part. You know what I mean?
Did you
We
not think
talked up
that
the
was the
girl all
best?
night, just didn't get her number.
For me, that was our best goal of the season, our best team goal of the season. The interception by Basuma, and the fact Romero was actually running onto that pass. It wasn't a stationary pass. He was literally on the run. That pass was absolutely superb to Sonny. And Sonny, for once, absolutely inch perfect pass, curling pass on for Maddison, who finished it with the chip with his weaker foot. And, I thought those were the sort of goals that excite me as a football fan. The others were two mistakes. Madison was Brendan Johnson's was a lovely finish. Both of those goals came from Brentford mistakes. I'd like to see more goals like we saw that scored with that third goal, which was all of our making. and it was a lovely, it really was a lovely team goal, and hopefully that'll give us some belief.
But Johnny, you say it was mistakes, but isn't that the whole game, to be high pressing,
No,
put the team under pressure and force those mistakes? And we're actually the best team in the league at that. I think we're the most tackles in the opposition final, in the opposition's defensive third we've made. Like we're like, as much as if you're the team support, if you're a Brentford fan, you probably say, "Oh, those are sloppy passes." But we do that to every team. Even against Arsenal, we were winning the ball high up the pitch on numerous occasions. We just didn't make the most of it. So, as much as you want to say we should be creating our own goals, that's one way we do it, and we do it consistently.
I was going to say, though, to add to that, the game changer, yes, on Saturday, I keep saying yesterday because it feels like it was yesterday, was Dominic Solanke. He leads the press. We have missed someone who leads the press. He pressed and he pressed and he pressed, and it's sort of infectious, you know. He makes the others come on and press with him. We've been pressing individually. You know, you've seen moments where Romero has got so frustrated he's trying to press from the front or press from the back and leaving gaping holes. Solanke was pressing so hard. I mean, he was absolutely finished after about 75 minutes. He had his hands on his knees, but that press really was infectious with the rest of the squad, and I felt that was the first time that I could actually see us really pressing as a unit, which is what you have to do if you're going to play the press game. And whilst I agree with you, Simeon, that's what we want to do.
That's what we do, mate. That's what we do,
that's
mate.
What we
That's
do.
who we are.
That's who we are.
That's who we are, mate.
That's who we are, mate. It is what it is. But I think with Solanke, he is the cherry on the cake, which enables us to really fulfil that from the top to the bottom. And when we've been playing with the false nine with no Richarlison and what have you, I don't think that we've really seen that. So please God, well, listen, look, the proof is in the pudding. The next two Premier League games will really tell us once and for all where we are this season. If we can come away with 2 wins or a draw and a win, then, you know, I think we're off and running, and, you know, we can all be really positive about the season ahead.
Agreed.
We go into Old Trafford, and if we get those 3 points, now I'm not saying that I'm going to lose my cool with excitement, but I am saying that is
you will.
Exactly what Johnny said. I absolutely will. Shirtless for sure. Sorry for the family, but you know, I just think it's one of those things. I've been waiting for us to click and gel, and we are right there the entire time, and it finally happened. Now I don't know if it's by hook or by crook. Is it Thomas Frank? Is it us having less of the ball, catching team out in the counter for that last goal? I don't know what the best method is going forward, but I know Ange at least has now, okay, these players in this instance can do this. When we have less than 50% of the ball, look at how we press, look at how we, and this is the thing about Solanke as well that I wanted to touch on, that the things we always say good about Richarlison are all the things that Solanke excels at, which is press, physicality. Now, he is a little bit weaker in the box than I thought he would be when we bought him, but admittedly, he does take a lot of contact. And in this system, that's why we see Sonny sometimes start to disappear in matches when he was in that 9, because you get 2 hefty center backs just clog that space. He's got nothing to do. But at least Solanke's got a big enough frame. He can kind of give himself room just by being there. And I think that presence in the box is automatically making Son and Brendan better, because they have a legitimate option right there, or they can take it on themselves. I think you saw that from Brennan Johnson. It was more of a, and I don't know, you know, maybe we as fans should collectively continue to apply pressure, not abuse, pressure to the players, because look what you can get out of them when they have a little bit of heat on their back, so to speak, when they can feel the opposition breathing down their neck, so to speak, like light a fire up under them. That's what I like, because that's how you make the best food. You got to cook it. And Brennan Johnson could. Now, again, this is the biggest point. We have to continue to do it. And another thing we must continue to do is bring on Mikey Moore instead of Timo Werner. Now, again, Timo Werner, not my scapegoat, but Mikey Moore, when he came onto the pitch, when I tell you the amount of joy I felt inside, I don't know how to explain it. It was effervescent. It was exuding off of me. My dog could smell it, and it wasn't sweat. It was like he's actually out there. Just give him the ball. Let's see him. It's just a level of excitement I haven't felt a lot this season, because part of what I've been looking forward to is that pathway from the academy to the first team. As a overseas fan, as a man who worked for FC Dallas and saw just how crucial a homegrown academy is to a first team and to the league and to U.S. men's national team, like, I put a lot of stock in the academy. That's where Harry Kane came from, the best striker I've ever seen with my eyes. So for me, this is a good sign. I never thought it would be a instant, let's just get the kids in there, because then you're putting your job on the line. But, I would like to see Will Lancashire start to come around town. If Richarlison, sounds like we're not going to get any looks at him. I got a lot of hope going forward. Now, again, that hope continues. You put on a result at Old Trafford. We ain't getting a win there, and I don't know how long. Last year we drew, not good enough. Get the full 3 points, take advantage of them, and then I think we can really, let the train just keep rolling.
Richie's back running.
Keep that train rolling, because we made up 2 points on Man City and Arsenal yesterday. So let's see what happens.
The title's still on.
Come on.